Everyone, welcome, Suswagatam, Jai Hind, Namaste. A warm welcome to episode 142 of our Expert Talk live show. And today we are diving into a topic that lies at the heart of organization organizational success, which is dilemmas resolution framework for aligning leaders on the company culture, because company culture is something which drives any organization on the path of success in long terms. And we will have Harish as our esteemed speaker. He will join us soon on this live session. So I'm your host for the day, Vipul and Mali. You can check my LinkedIn profile. You can follow me for more updates on my regular expert talk shows and all HR activities. You can follow our YouTube channel, Vipul the Wonderful, and press the bell icon to get the regular updates. As you know, we believe that sharing is caring, and purpose of this expert talk show is to bring in experts like Harish, who will join us on this show very soon and will share his real life experience. So before Harish is joining, let me give a brief intro about him. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and leadership advisor with deep expertise in strategy alignment and innovation. As a co-founder of Align by Design, he helps organizations navigate complex business challenges, fostering growth through impactful solutions. And Harish background spans consulting roles at Infosys, Cognizant, and BMC Software, and he has also co-authored "Hope is Not a Strategy: A Guide on Tracking Leadership Dilemma." So please feel free to engage and ask questions during the session. This is an interactive event, and we want to make sure that you get the most out of it. So without further delay, let's get started. And please join me in welcoming our expert Harish once again on this show. Thank you, Harish, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Vipul. Excited to be here. Looking forward to this.
Pleasure is ours, and thank you once again for accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time. And on top of it, you're going to share your real life experience. So thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vipul.
So before we start the session with Q&A, please tell us more about you and your journey till now.
Yeah, so I did my engineering from College of Engineering Pune, then did my MBA from MDI Gurgaon. Then I worked with IT services and product companies in Pune for 6 years. 2010, I started an online book library service. That was my first startup. I ran it for 3 years. Then I started this company called Choose to Think. Um, Choose to Think helps teams and individuals on building future relevance and a lot of reinforcement of culture. We did do that for large companies. And around this time, my wife and co-founder at Align by Design, Sirisha, she was working as an independent consultant after her stint in the corporate. And she was helping companies articulate the company culture, and we were trying to actually implement that company culture. So because we were doing things in the same space, we actually started collaborating. And that's how now we've come to this point where we are running this company Align by Design together, and working with companies big and small.
Wow, that's great and amazing. So to begin with the very first question, our audience, you can also ask your questions in the chat box. We will be happy to have them during the session. So the very first question is, can you start by explaining what the dilemma resolution framework is, and what inspired you to create it?
Yeah. So, again, like I said, this is something which, Sirisha and I started working on. She got the first idea when she was, at Carnegie Mellon University for her Nehru Fulbright Fellowship, where this was being discussed in the context of different countries. When somebody from India goes and works in the US, then how does it work, and things like, and that's how this started working, right? So what we realize is when you go from one country to the other, what you are doing in India, what is right for you in India may not be seen as the right thing to do in, say, the US or some other country, right?
True.
That is where we started thinking about this. That is what is a dilemma, and this is what happens in companies also. When you join a company, you're not sure what is the style of that company. So आप
True.
या तो वो करते हो जो इसके पहले कंपनी में आपके साथ हुआ, या आप वो करते हो जो आपके लिए अभी तक it's worked for you in your college life or whatever, right?
True.
So you get confused, and that's a dilemma. See, dilemma, the definition of dilemma is it's a choice between two equal options. When it is a choice between a good and a bad option, everyone takes the good option. When the choice is between two equal options, that's where people get stuck. And so we created this framework where we identified dilemmas across different aspects of how an organization is run. And we said if you resolve those dilemmas, then it becomes clear to everyone कि इस company में कैसे काम करना है, how should we operate in this organization. That's the whole essence of the dilemmas resolution framework.
So it's all about selecting the best of best option.
Yes, and the interesting thing is, best in one option also has it's connected to the other option. So a common example that we give is, do you want to be like a happy family or a professional sports team? आप यहाँ पे जो choice करोगे, that has a connection with how you want to be in terms of, say, how candid you want to be, how transparent you want to be. Because in a happy family, जो patriarch या matriarch बोलते हैं वो सब मान लेते हैं, but in a
True.
professional
True.
sports team, captain जो भी बोले, जैसा भी बोले, जो correct है वो उसी बात पे हम लोग मानते हैं ना. So
Very true.
then that has a repercussion on how you give feedback in the company. So problem क्या हो जाता है कि think से do gap हो जाता है. You think one thing, you say that yeah, I want transparency in the company, but when it comes to doing, you say नहीं, मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ वही सबने सुनना है. तो
Very
फिर
true.
then there is a think say do gap.
True. 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 No, well explained. That's amazing. So moving on to the next question, why is addressing dilemmas so crucial when aligning leaders on company culture? And in your experience, what are some of the most common dilemmas leaders face when trying to shape or shift company culture?
Yeah. So like in any organization or any place, right? There are some people whose behavior has a disproportionate impact on the rest of the people. जैसे हम बोलते हैं घर में भी पेरेंट्स जैसे बिहेव करते हैं, बच्चे वैसे ही करते हैं, राइट?
True.
बिकॉज बच्चे
True.
उनको देखते हैं एंड दे फॉलो दैट बिहेवियर. सिमिलरली इन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, लीडर्स जैसा बिहेव करेंगे, हम सबको वो आइडिया मिलता है कि हाँ, इस कंपनी में ऐसे बिहेव करना है बिकॉज लीडर्स आर बिहेविंग लाइक दिस, right?
True.
So which
True.
is why leaders का अगर alignment नहीं होता है, so then what happens between their teams, it just becomes more and more complicated because leaders ही अगर aligned नहीं है तो उनके teams एक दूसरे के साथ कैसे काम करेंगे. So that is why
Very
it is very important for the leaders to actually have that alignment on how to behave. Because I will never do what you say, I will do what you do, right? अगर आप मुझे कहते हो कि you should collaborate, अगर आप दो लीडर्स एक दूसरे के साथ कोलैबोरेट नहीं कर रहे बट मुझे आप बोल रहे हो नहीं नहीं आप कोलैबोरेट करो, तो वो कभी नहीं होने वाला. सो
true. True.
इसलिए लीडर्स को यू हैव टू फर्स्ट अलाइन, and then the rest of the organizations, the rest of the organization will be aligned, and that's why these dilemmas have to be resolved among the leaders. नहीं तो फिर क्या हो जाता है कि सपोज आप मार्केटिंग फंक्शन हेड करते हो, मैं सेल्स फंक्शन हेड करता हूँ, तो अगर हम दोनों में ही वो अगर बन नहीं रही है
Sync
कि
नहीं है या.
तो हमारी टीम्स कैसे काम करेंगे एक साथ.
True, 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 true. So it's all about leading by example. Today morning only I've shared one post on my LinkedIn profile that one kid was watching something on mobile. So one parent came with a book. He started reading. Then mother came with a book, and she also started reading. So then that kid has thrown the mobile, and he also bought one book and started reading a book. So it's all about leading with example, instead of saying, uh, do it, you can, you do it, you if you are saying that let's do it, then that will create a more impact. So
Yeah, yeah.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल सही
So
बात है.
that's a great example, Vipul. I think that completely, signifies exactly what we are talking about.
True, 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 true. So the next question is, how does DRF differ from other frameworks or tools aimed at resolving organizational challenges?
Yeah. So, like I would say the, frameworks generally, right? No framework is wrong, right? Every framework works in a specific context. It's up to the individuals. When I say individuals, it's the leaders or say the CEO or founder of the company to understand and figure out which framework works best in my organization, right? And कल्चर के साथ ना थोड़ा the problem that so many definitions of company culture and values that people just get very confused कि होता क्या है. So we've tried to actually make it very simple. We said culture, the organization culture is how people behave when nobody is watching. Like the
True,
example that you gave कि अगर माँ नहीं पढ़ रही है, माँ नहीं है तो बच्ची क्या कर रही है. वो बच्ची अगर पढ़ रही है तो वो वहां का कल्चर है. अगर वो माँ नहीं है और बच्ची मोबाइल पे है, मतलब वो उसका कल्चर है, राइट.
true,
तो
true,
सो फर्स्ट इज टू आइडेंटिफाई कि जस्ट डिफाइन कि कल्चर क्या है. कल्चर इज बेसिकली हाउ पीपल बिहेव व्हेन नोबडी इज वाचिंग, एंड देन व्हाट आर वैल्यूज, व्हाट ड्राइव्स दोज बिहेवियर्स is what your values are. अगर आप ये simple definition लेते हो, it just makes it very easy and simple for us to think about, okay, what is company culture and values. So next what you have to do is this culture and these values have to be in service of the company strategy कि आपको करना क्या है, right? Otherwise क्या हो जाता है कि a lot of times we see, somebody in the HR team is asked to write the company culture document, values up karo, and they come up with something very, very nice, but it is what happens is it becomes very theoretical कि आप वहां पे बैठ के आप बोल रहे हो कि हाँ देयर शुड बी ऑनेस्टी, कोलैबोरेशन, ट्रस्ट, इंटीग्रिटी, रिस्पेक्ट. नोबडी विल से नो टू दैट, राइट. किसी
true,
भी कंपनी का आप कोई भी वैल्यूज ले लो, नोबडी विल से कि ये मुझे नहीं चाहिए. बट
true, true.
वो क्या हो जाता है कि इट बिकम्स ऑन पेपर, इट रिमेन्स ऑन पेपर, इट इज अ प्लाक दैट इज पुट अप ऑन द वॉल एंड नोबडी बॉदर्स अबाउट इट. व्हाई?
वो
बिकॉज इट इज नॉट कनेक्टेड टू द
वो
कंपनी
एक
स्ट्रेटजी.
लोकल टच या एक जो लोकल फ्लेवर होना चाहिए वो मिसिंग होता है. तो वो
करेक्ट.
प्रैक्टिकल प्रैक्टिकल वो फिजिबल नहीं होता है कई बार.
Yeah,
वेरी
yeah,
ट्रू,
yeah,
वेरी ट्रू.
yeah. So, इसीलिए your company culture and values have to be in service of what you are doing. Because if I say that a culture is how we behave when nobody is watching, right? So, abhi just take this example. If you are my supervisor and we have our one-on-one, discussion, weekly call अगर हो रहा है, तो ना आप ना मैं जाके हम पहले ये चेक करेंगे कि हमारा कंपनी वैल्यूज क्या बोलता है. आप तो आज मुझे पूछोगे कि ये हफ्ते में आपने क्या किया, और व्हाट इज स्टॉपिंग मी, एंड व्हाट डू आई नीड टू डू मोर, व्हाट डू आई नीड टू डू डिफरेंटली, राइट. सो अपना जो वन ऑन वन डिस्कशन होगा वो तो हम लोग करेंगे, दैट विल कंप्लीटली ड्रिवन बाय व्हाट इज एक्सपेक्टेड फ्रॉम अ बिजनेस स्टैंड पॉइंट. So जो company culture and values that we are talking about, they have to be in sync with the business strategy. नहीं तो फिर क्या होता है कि it becomes a theoretical, something on paper. ना आप
ट्रू,
उसको follow करते हो ना मैं उसको follow करता हूँ. Which
वेरी
is why
ट्रू,
we say you have to think of this, you have to look at this think say do gap. जो आप कर रहे हो आप वही बोलो, जो आप बोल रहे हो वो करो.
ट्रू,
दुनिया को दिखाने के लिए आप कुछ मत बताओ वहां पे. फिर वो क्या हो जाता है कि आप हायरिंग के वक्त उनको बोलते हो कि अरे हमारे यहाँ ओपन कल्चर है. बंदा आता है अंदर एंड देन उसको कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछता है या बोलता है कि हम ऐसा क्यों नहीं करते. अरे तुम अभी आए हो, तुम कौन होते हो मुझे बोलने वाले. यहाँ पे ऐसे ही होता है, ऐसे ही करना है. विच मीन्स इट्स अ वेरी क्लोज कल्चर, राइट. यू आर नॉट एंकरेजिंग एनी डिस्कशन. सो देन उसमें फिर ओपन कल्चर बोलने का क्या रहा. बट पीपल से दैट बिकॉज इट साउंड्स कूल.
ट्रू.
Hiring के वक्त that is something which I want to sell to a candidate, but when that person comes in, मैं कुछ और कर रहा हूँ.
Very true, very true. So that's you rightly say. So yes, audience, you can check Harish LinkedIn profile. You can connect with him. He'll be happy to help you, happy to guide you, and he's creating amazing content also. So yeah. So the next question is, can you share an example of how DRF helped leadership team overcome specific cultural challenges? ऐसा कोई recent example या ऐसा कोई successful example अगर आप share करें तो that will help us to understand more about DRF.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I can't reveal the name of the company, but this is a very interesting discussion that happened. What we typically do is we first do an assessment, and assessment में हम लोग सबसे बात करते हैं पहले across different levels, right from senior leaders to somebody who's just joined. Sometimes we even talk to people who have quit the company just to understand what is the pulse of that company culture क्या है. And then we present those findings to the leaders. We say that this is what people are saying. You might be doing something, but it is being perceived in this way. तो अब आप बोलो, because then what we are doing is we are basically showing a mirror to the leaders, right? कि नहीं तो वो क्या होता है कि वो लोग अच्छे इंटेंशन के साथ कुछ करते हैं, बट वो उसका इम्पैक्ट कुछ और ही हो जाता है. So we show them, the mirror, and then we ask them, these are the dilemmas that people are facing, right? A very, typical example that we see is speed versus quality, right? सबको स्पीड भी चाहिए, सबको क्वालिटी भी चाहिए, बट वैसा एक टाइम पे दोनों तो हो नहीं सकता है, बिकॉज अगर आप क्वालिटी के लिए जाओगे तो थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा, राइट? Standard, typical case that happens is, suppose you are my manager, right? Customer asks me for some feature, so I come to you and you say, हाँ कर दो, immediate कर दो, right? Because a customer is very important, I want this to be done tomorrow. So I quickly go and create something and ship it out, right? So I realized कि हाँ, Vipul is saying कि बस speed is very important in this organization, right? बाद में 3 महीने के बाद कोई और कस्टमर आता है, वो मुझे कुछ तो पूछता है, तो मैं फिर से इमीडिएट कुछ तो एक दिन में करके भेज देता हूँ. एंड आई टेल विपुल, मैंने ये एक दिन में करके भेज दिया. आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग यू टू से वेल डन हरीश, बहुत अच्छा किया. बट विपुल सेज, अरे ये एक दिन में क्यों किया? इसके लिए तो मतलब और टाइम देना चाहिए था आपको. You should have spent, you should have asked the customer for 2 more weeks, and ये पूरा करके देना चाहिए था. And now I'm confused. यार लास्ट टाइम तो विपुल ने ऐसा बोला था, इस टाइम विपुल ऐसा बोल रहा है. सो विपुल नोज, आपको पता है कि कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्या है दोनों कंपनीज का, दोनों कस्टमर्स का, तो कहाँ पे आपको स्पीड के लिए करना है, कहाँ पे आपको क्वालिटी करना है. बट मैं कंफ्यूज हूँ as a fresher or even as a new leader, right? Because I'm not sure what to now go for. Should I go for speed or should I go for quality, right? So
True.
then next time if somebody comes, I will not take a decision, right? I will say, let me ask Vipul, because मैं कुछ करता हूँ और फिर विपुल बाद में मुझे डांट देता है, तो मैं आप विपुल के पास आता हूँ. फिर आप बोलते हो, यार ये हरीश को मैंने हायर किया है, बट एवरी टाइम आई ओनली हैव टू टेक द डिसीजन. सो इसमें मतलब मेरा टाइम कहाँ बच रहा है, मेरा बैंडविड्थ तो उतना ही यूज हो रहा है. सो ये बहुत ही टिपिकल एग्जांपल हमने देखा है बहुत सारे कंपनीज में. तो इसका
True.
प्रॉब्लम ये कहाँ से होता है, राइट? कि देयर इज सम डिसीजन मेकिंग फ्रेमवर्क यू आर यूजिंग, कि यहाँ पे मुझे स्पीड करना है, यहाँ पे मुझे क्वालिटी करना है, which is not explained to me, right?
True.
And this is an example of a dilemma, right? Speed or quality in terms of say execution, what should I optimize for? So if you as a company actually define that for these kind of companies, for these kind of customers, in these kind of contexts, this is what we want to do. We want to go for speed in this and quality in this. Now when I join with your team or when I join your company, if you give me this as a document कि हम ऐसे काम करते हैं, then it is clear to me. Then I will not keep coming back to you. फिर वो जो फोर्थ कस्टमर आएगा, I know कि यहाँ पे कैसे काम करना है. बट वो अगर मुझे नहीं समझेगा तो मैं आपके पास आते रहूंगा. तो उसमें फिर क्या हो जाता है, या तो आप बॉटलनेक बन गए डिसीजन मेकिंग के, बिकॉज हरीश इज ऑलवेज कमिंग टू विपुल, या तो फिर हरीश कुछ तो एक ट्राई कर रहा है, तो कभी गलत हो जाता है, कभी सही हो जाता है. सो द क्वालिटी ऑफ डिसीजन मेकिंग इज बैड. आइदर वे द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज सफरिंग, एंड मैं फ्रस्ट्रेट हो रहा हूँ कि यार मुझे आप ऑटोनॉमी नहीं दे रहे हो, आप फ्रस्ट्रेट हो रहे हो कि यार हरीश को हायर करके कुछ फायदा नहीं है, हर बार तो मेरे पास ही आता है, तो एवरीवन इज अनहैप्पी एंड डिससेटिस्फाइड।
और हरीश को भी ऐसा लगता है कि मुझे हायर किया ही क्यों है, जब सब चीज़ों में मुझे पूछना है, तो दैट दैट
या
वो माइक्रो मैनेजमेंट कई बार इट
यस,
किल्स द चार्म ऑफ द एंटायर प्रोसेस। तो
करेक्ट, एग्जैक्टली।
ट्रू ट्रू ट्रू, वेरी ट्रू। So that's well explained. Now we have a question from audience. Stephanie Taylor is asking that it is a very difficult to change old culture and ways to more positive and new ways of running an organization. How do you start the changing the toxic old culture?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Stephanie. It's not an easy task. It is not a switch on or off that you can immediately move from a toxic culture to a vibrant positive culture. But the first, it all starts with first accepting what is this toxic culture that we are talking about, and that's where, like I was mentioning earlier, when we do this insight exercise, right, where you try to unearth what are people really, seeing, feeling, and this is not something which you will get a very good picture of by running, say, a simple pulse survey. Because again, put yourself in the shoes of that employee. If there is a a survey that pops up, and there's a rating of 1 to 5, you'll just click on 3 because you want to get rid of that dialog box which is asking you that question, right? So this takes time and effort by someone to actually set up time, go and talk from a place of curiosity where you are not judging the person, neither the employee nor the manager. Just do almost like a fact finding mission, right, to understand what is really happening and take an objective view of whether it is the toxic culture that you are referring to. And a lot of times what happens is this has to be done by an external party, because like the example that I was giving, say if Harish and Vipul are part of a team, Vipul is Harish's manager, and if Vipul comes to me and asks, oh Harish, tell me what is happening in your work life, are you happy? If Vipul is the reason for my dissatisfaction, it's very difficult for me to say to Vipul that, oh, you are the reason why it's not happy, right? And if you
True.
imagine that, okay, there's a Stephanie Taylor who's part of the HR team, and she will come and ask, in my mind, you are all part of the same team, right? So it's going to be very difficult for me to be that transparent in a healthy organization. If it is a toxic company, then it is even worse, because then I treat everyone as a mortal enemy, and I'm not going to, give you any honest, valuable insights. So the best way to do this is to get somebody from outside, because they will do a more honest appraisal of what's happening in the organization and show the mirror to everyone. So that's
And
that's the that's,
एक
that's how you have to start.
एक वो न्यूट्रल अप्रोच भी, न्यूट्रल अनबायस्ड ओपिनियन भी मिलेगा, तो दैट विल बी मोर practical way of getting a
Yes.
third party
Yeah.
consultant to manage all these things. I hope you got the answer, Stephanie. So, moving on to the next question: how can leaders use the DRF to balance maintaining the current culture with adapting to the new growth culture?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Vipul, because again, if you think of any organization or any company, right, even if they have not done a culture exercise, there is a culture in the company, right? Something is working. So what you need to understand and take out is understand what are the things that are really useful for me, and retain that, right? And there is a direction that you want to take for the future. So just imagine that I'm, say, a 10 crore company and I want to become a 50 crore company. So obviously you have to do things differently when you are going to be a 50 crore company. But whatever worked for you till now to bring you from 0 to 10 crores, not everything is wrong. You don't want to leave any all of those things. There are some things which are good, but there are some things which are going to be different as well, right? So
True.
you need to understand what is the good part that you want to maintain, and what is the thing which you are not there today. So that's called an aspirational value, right? An aspirational value is something that I don't do it today, but I want to build that, that behavior and that value in my company. So that is something for which you will have to really put in some effort, to make sure that is the kind of behavior that is getting inculcated in the company. Anyone in the company shows that behavior, you should go and encourage them. You should recognize the effort that, oh, Vipul, yes, this is what we are talking about when we say that we want to change, if we want to become a 50 crore company. So those aspirational values will be new, and it will also take you more effort because that is not your natural style, right? But if you are
True.
talking about growth, you are talking about doing something which you are not doing, till now, right? So it is going to be new, so it is going to take effort, it's going to be different, and you will need to use all kinds of things. You'll need to train people on those behaviors, you will need to encourage people on those behaviors, and it's a process. Again, like I was saying to Stephanie, it's not something which is going to happen overnight. So you have to
it's
be
it's it's all about creating a mindset, preparing the entire team to get step by step onto the
yeah.
new culture. That's true. Stephanie is appreciating, she has got the answer, so she's thanking you. Thank you so much. uh, Next question is, what role does effective communication play in the DRF process, and how can leaders ensure it's done well?
Yeah, yeah. Again, when we talk about company culture, right? So communication goes hand in hand. I think it's integral to a defining your culture and actually telling it, right? You have to communicate it to the whole world, because you are communicating your culture is how you attract the right kind of people from outside, because then they feel, oh, this is the culture that really is in this company. And you also need to do that internally. A lot of times what happens is we see companies and leaders taking the employees for granted, and that's a very wrong approach, because you are trying to woo these candidates from outside, but you assume that your internal people, you don't have to communicate to them that regularly.
True.
So communication has to be thought through, very deliberately when you're talking about, communicating your culture, and what are these stances that you're taking on these dilemmas, right? Because like we were talking about this example of speed versus quality that we took earlier, right? Now now you and I, it's not just a communication between the two of us, right? If the leaders are resolving these dilemma around speed versus quality, then that is something which has to be clarified to everyone in the organization. Otherwise, the challenge that Harish and Vipul had, it will happen between Vipul and Stephanie, and then Stephanie and Preeti and Mahendra and Harish. It's going to just continue, right?
True. True.
So unless this is articulated well, right? Which is why when we do this exercise, we create something called as a culture manifesto and a culture handbook. So the manifesto is something which is slightly short. Think of it as a marketing document which you share outside as well, right? Culture handbook is a lot more detailed, with stories of how people behave in this company, because stories are a great example for me to understand what happens. And if you think of,
So, so manifesto is like a trailer of a movie, and handbook is the full-fledged
yes,
movie.
yes, yes, because what happens is handbook has a lot of the details, so the internal employees will understand it better. And
True.
again, if you think of it, I give you a 500 word document and a 2000 word document. People outside will read the 500 word document, right?
True.
Where people inside, they know that this is going to tell us how to
And
behave.
many a times it's not necessary to show everything to the outside organization,
Correct.
outside of the organization. Many things you want to keep confidential within the organization, and you want to highlight the key takeaways for the outside world. So
Yes.
that's very apt.
Yeah, yeah, and the handbook has to have examples, stories of behavior. If you think of, just look at all religions in the world, right? they all have a holy book. What does that holy book contain? It has these stories of how our gods behaved in different situations. That is what tells us, and this has got communicated when there was no internet and no written word also, right? All through stories.
True.
So if I know that Vipul behaves in this way in a certain situation, and I and Vipul belong to the same culture, then I know that this is how I should behave, right? And there should
Very
also be an anti-story. Anti-story is how you should not behave in that situation. So if you have actually fired somebody from the organization, if you ask somebody to leave because of certain behaviors, you should document that as well, because you don't want that to be repeated in the company, right?
true.
So you want people to know that if this is the kind of behavior that you see, then those people should not, they don't belong to our company, right? So you need both stories and anti-stories, which is why communication becomes so important, and it has to be done. You have to think of reinforcing of culture all the time.
Yeah, showing good stories will create a positive environment, and showing even bad or negative stories will set an example that this is the this is something I should refrain from, or this is something company will not tolerate, so that will set an
Yeah.
example. So very rightly said. So the next question is, many CEOs struggle with scaling the culture as the company grows. How does the DRF support leaders through this post process? क्योंकि कई बार एक ऐसा सिचुएशन आता है जहाँ पे लीडर्स को एक डिसीजन लेना होता है कि ग्रोथ या कल्चर, क्योंकि दो चीज़ों को साथ में हैंड्स इन हैंड ले जाना मुश्किल होता है, तो उस सिचुएशन में क्या किया जाए?
Yeah, yeah. So, there's a very interesting way of looking at this, right? So, if you think of your company culture as a product, and the market for that product is your internal employees, right? So, अगर आपका product कभी वो stagnant नहीं होता है, right? Your product will never be the same as it was 5 years ago. You keep evolving to the needs of your market. Similarly, in this case also, your culture has to keep evolving to address the needs of what you are trying to do now, right? So what happens is, when companies are trying to scale, when they're in that scaling phase, you will hear a lot of these things from employees saying, अभी वो बात नहीं जो पहले थी, पहले तो ऐसा था, पहले तो वैसा था, right? Because, and why is that? Because Vipul has started this company, Harish is the first employee, so Vipul is working very closely with Harish, right? Now Harish is an engineer, he is coding, right? Now we have got to a point where it's a 100 people company, 200 people company. Now you want to scale the company, right? So scaling is not going to happen through only the capacity of Vipul. Vipul has to bring more leaders. So क्या हो जाता है, Vipul and Harish के बीच में now some layers are getting formed, right? And then Harish feels, oh, now I can't go directly to Vipul and talk to him. अभी मैं कुछ बोलता तो Vipul says, हाँ, talk to Mahendra, who's my CXO, and Mahendra will come and or Mahendra will take the decision, right? So Harish feels, अरे पहले तो अच्छा था, I could just go to Vipul. Lot of times what happens is, the leaders also, because you are also human, right? Vipul also doesn't want to let Harish feel that Vipul has changed as a person, right? So Vipul lets Harish continue to come to him for all decisions, and then Mahendra is wondering, then why did you hire me? If Harish is going to go to the CEO for everything, then why am I the CXO here, right? So everyone gets undermined, and that happens because people, especially leaders, they feel their loyalty is to the people, but their loyalty has to be to the interest of the company. And if the company needs to grow, या तो आप ये बोल दो कि नहीं, मुझे स्केल नहीं करना है, राइट? अभी मैं जैसे चल रहा हूं, मैं वैसे ही चलाऊंगा. It's perfectly fine. There are companies which take a stance like that, and they're doing fine. But if you have a desire to scale, right, then you have to do things that are required for scaling, which means that you will have to decide that how is this going to change now. And for that transformation, if the company culture has to change, that is where then you apply the DRF, saying, okay, Now this is going to be the dilemma that I'm going to face, because we're going to do something different as compared to what we were doing earlier. So how will you behave in this case, right? And then you have to, resolve those dilemmas, and you have to agree as a company, align that, see, this is how we are going to behave. Now there may be some things that Vipul is not personally comfortable with, because Vipul's style is that, he wants to be with people and all that. But as the CEO of a scaling company, people has to focus a lot more on the market. People has to go and talk to customers. People cannot be spending his time, with his internal employees. So then Vipul's personal choice then doesn't come into the picture. Vipul has to do what the company requires him to do, right?
True.
That is something which we see when companies are scaling. It's a challenge for leaders. It's a challenge for the organization, but it's a transformation process. And in any transformation, any change, process, right? It's going to be uncomfortable to start with, but you have to decide whether you really want to do it, right? It's like how, now it's like December, so around December 30th, 31st, everyone will say that I want to lose weight, right? But that requires some time and effort. If you really want to do that in 2025, then you'll have to go to the gym, you'll have to go and run, right?
Hashtag resolution 2025 will start trending, you know.
Yeah.
Hashtag 2025 will start trending for a few weeks, and then
Yes.
everything will
After
will
that it comes down, right? Because you stop making those actions, you stop doing those actions. It's only, thinking and saying that, yeah, yeah, I want to do this, I should do this. But are you really putting in that effort? And it's because it's going to be different, right? Thing is, if you continue to do what you were doing earlier, then you're going to get the same result. If you're talking about scaling, you have to do something different. So then you have to decide whether you are really going to make that change, or it's just for the sake of saying that, no, no, we should scale 10x, 5x. Are you ready to do what it requires to grow 5x, 10x?
true, 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 very true. So you talk about navigating in interconnected dilemmas. So how does addressing one dilemma impact others within the framework?
Yeah. So, like I was giving you this example of the happy family and professional sports team, right? Now, this is one dilemma. What happens is, a lot of times people try to take the best in each of these dilemmas. That, yeah, between professional sports team and happy family, I've read this book on of Netflix culture, and they say that we should be like a professional sports team. So I will take professional sports team. Great. Then you come to say communication. In communication there is this. How do you communicate? Are you transparent, or how diplomatic you are, right? Candor versus diplomacy. So you say, I have always grown in an environment where I don't like conflict. So let's be very, diplomatic. Diplomacy seems to be like the best option. Now if you compare these two, then they can't go hand in hand, because here you are saying professional sports team, and here you are saying that we'll be diplomatic. So then this is what causes, this is how these dilemmas are interconnected. So you need to then, think and decide whether, so that, professional sports team versus happy family, it's like a spectrum, right? There are companies which are on one end of the spectrum and doing well, there are companies which are on the other end of the spectrum and doing well. You have to decide where do you want to stand in that spectrum. It will be somewhere, right? It will be 60, 40, 70, 30, whatever, right? You choose that, and you then try to understand, okay, if this is the stance that I'm taking on this dilemma, then on the other dilemma, how do I do it? But if you take one extreme here and a different extreme on the other dilemma, then it is just not going to work, because it is just going to remain on paper. Because if you are talking of a professional sports team but you are avoiding conflict, I will never say that, Vipul, this is how you need to change your style, because I feel, oh, Vipul will get hurt if I say this. Then how is it a professional sports team, right?
True.
It is a happy family, because we are avoiding conflict, and it is fine to be a happy family. The problem comes when people read something or get influenced that, oh, we should be like this because Amazon is like this, Netflix is like this. they have, understood what works for them after years and decades of trying, right?
Trial and errors and experiments.
Yeah. So you can't just copy paste, something from other companies and do it for yourself. You have to do what works for you, right? So, and works for you as an individual, as your team, for this group, for the direction that you want, what is the goal that you have, you have to decide what works for you. And which is why you have to take these, look at these dilemmas in an interconnected fashion. Don't try to take this best in class approach that हाँ ये dilemma में ये अच्छा लग रहा है ये ले लेते हैं, ये dilemma में ये अच्छा लग रहा है ये ले लेते हैं, right? You have to actually see what does this, reflect, कि आप communication ऐसा कर रहे हो, तो then leadership में कैसा होगा? Are you going to, hire more leaders, or are you going to develop people within the company because they understand the company culture, and you want to grow more leaders? तो उस हिसाब से आपको फिर देन आपका एग्जीक्यूशन भी आपको देखना पड़ेगा, एग्जीक्यूशन में आप कैसे कर रहे हो, राइट? कोलैबोरेशन में आप कैसे कर रहे हो, पीपल डेवलपमेंट कैसे कर रहे हो, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर इंटरकनेक्टेड. प्रॉब्लम क्या हो जाता है कि पीपल गेट वो इंस्टाग्राम टाइप हो जाता है ना, कि इंस्टाग्राम में एवरीवन सीज एवरीवन्स हाइलाइट्स इन देयर लाइफ. दे डोंट सी कि यार वो इतना बॉडी अगर बना के है, मतलब पीछे 4 घंटे उसने जिम में डाला है, तो वो
True.
कोई नहीं देखता.
True, true. It's not, people don't see the efforts they have put in behind. Just
राइट.
वो results ही दिखता है तो
या. या.
true, 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 true. So well answered with good example. Thank you. And moving on to the next question. So what advice would you give to leaders who are just beginning to access and align their company culture?
Yeah, yeah. So, I was answering Stephanie's question, right? So, the first thing is to take a very objective view of, what's happening in the company, and I strongly recommend that you get that done by an external agency, so that you get a real picture, a true picture, and it's not colored by your own biases. Because if you are part of the company, right, you're part of the problem a lot of
True,
the times, right? And because you know something, you have what we call as the curse of knowledge, right? Because you know it, you make a lot of assumptions, you have some biases. That's how you will, look at it. And what happens is, again, if say the HR team is trying to do this exercise, HR team is also responsible for the company culture, right? Now, how will somebody in the HR team come and tell Vipul, the CEO, that the company, these are the problems in company culture? Because I'm worried then Vipul will ask me, Harish, you were the CHRO, what were you doing, right? So I
true,
will, you know, sometimes by design, sometimes by accident, I will not present the true picture to you, right? It's the
true,
same case with managers, not just the, when I say HR, it's just an example, right? So if you go to somebody who's a manager and who you ask that person, how is it in your team? That person will always give you, the rosiest picture, right? Not because he wants to hide from you every time, because he genuinely believes that everything is nice. So you
true.
have to get a true picture from somebody outside, which is more objective, right? And that's a good way to start, trying to understand what is happening. And again, the idea is not to be judgmental, right? Because, like I said, what happens is, say, again, Harish gives, say, an interview to a third party and says, yeah, Vipul was, he always puts a lot of pressure on me, and he doesn't let me work on, he doesn't let me take leave, and makes me come to office on weekends and this and that, right? Now, I, as a third party observer, also needs to understand what is the reason why people is talking about it this way, right? Now that it may be, the situation is such that there is extreme pressure from the customer, and you just have to do it, right? And there was something else that was on Vipul's mind, which is why Vipul said something to Harish that day. What we need to understand is this a a regular practice? Is this how it is throughout the year? Then there is a problem, because you also need to be practical in understanding that there are going to be times when the pressure is going to be there from the customer side, right? You are working in a business where you are trying to deliver something to the customer. So it's not that it's going to be very relaxed and all of that all the time. The if it is explained to me that, see, for the next 3 weeks I cannot let you take any leave or anything like that, because there is so much of customer demand, and after that things are going to be easier, then I feel, yeah, Vipul is explaining to me, Vipul is in a spot of bother, I am going to help Vipul out, right? And after 3 weeks, you tell me that, yeah, you can take a leave, just take some time off just to recharge and all that, and we both are fine. But if this keeps happening all the time, then there is a problem, right?
That is a problem.
This is what that third party has to understand very objectively. So if the third party hears just Harish's point of view and says, oh, and just makes this assumption that Vipul is a bad person or Vipul is leading to a toxic culture in the company, then that's a problem. Which is why that third party has to be very, very objective. They have to present this situation to the leaders that, see, this is what is happening. Now the leaders have to then take a call. Oh, okay, maybe we are not choosing the right kind of customers because they are putting so much of pressure on us. Maybe we are not pricing it right, or maybe we are not scoping the project right, which is why Harish has to spend so much time on working on weekends, right? If I scope it well, maybe then everyone will do it in a more relaxed way, and we'll be able to deliver a better value to the customer and actually charge more. We can also tell this to the customer. Otherwise, what happens is people jump to conclusions that, oh,
Very
this is very bad, or I start judging, as that person who's trying to assess the company culture. If I start judging you, then it's a problem. So that's very important. And unfortunately, anyone internal, it's going to be very difficult. I always, I think this is this joke that I heard somewhere that, when there is malaria, you don't go and complain to the mosquitoes, right? That there is malaria, you go to the doctor. So you need to go to someone else for your situation to be assessed.
very well explained. So the next question is, how does the DRF handle the trade-off between people-oriented decisions and business growth objectives?
Yeah. See, again, it's like the examples that I was giving, right? So a lot of times, what happens is something like, say, customer satisfaction versus customer delight, right? Satisfaction is delivering what the customer has asked for, so that's like the bare minimum that you have to do. For delight, you need to go the extra mile, which means you have to do some extra effort, which will also require extra time, extra understanding of the situation. How you will think of customer delight versus how I think as a fresher may be completely different, right? I will just do deliver what is required, and I will say I have delighted the customer. But you as my manager come and tell me, oh, this is the bare minimum, right? This is what the customer has asked for. But if you want to do delight, then you need to really think deep, spend some more time, and do that. So when you think about these kind of things as a company, do I want to be known for customer delight, or do I want to be known for very predictable customer satisfaction, right? Those are the kind of decisions that the leadership has to agree on, that this is what we think is how we want to run the company. Based on that, you will do things like, okay, if, a fresher will never be able to do customer delight because he just doesn't understand the customer's problem that well. So I should not be depending on a fresher for delivering customer delight. Not that he doesn't want to; it's just that he's not capable of, because he doesn't understand the customer context that well. So that means I'll have to actually start hiring people who are not freshers. I have to do more of lateral hiring, right? I have
True.
to develop my middle layer better, because they are the ones who can coach these freshers. Which means they are also going to be more expensive. Which means my project profitability is also going to get affected. So then what are the kind of customers where I can actually afford this kind of profitability margin? So this is how I have to think of it as a leader, right? Because otherwise what happens is I will say, yeah, yeah, I want to delight all my customers because that sounds cool and that's what I believe in. But the people who are tasked with the delivery, they are just not capable of giving you delight. So then there is there is a think say do gap. So that is how you have to think of everything. And then I have to say, okay, well, this is how I have to hire my people, this is how I have to develop my people, this is how I have to give them that autonomy to take these decisions. So that is how you have to think of your people oriented decisions and balance them with the business growth. It is okay if you say no, I will try to do delight only for say 20% of my customers. There I will demand a premium, I will do things differently. For the other 80%, it is going to be more on the customer satisfaction level. So that for that I can do with my regular fresher kind of people. But I need to keep developing them. I need to give them that opportunity so that this 20%, there are more people to do that 20% work. So this is how to think of all of these things. Otherwise, like I said, it's that हाँ delight करना है, but delight करने के लिए आपके पास लोग ही नहीं है, तो आप कैसे करोगे
True.
delight?
सो इट्स लाइक कि नए एक्सपीरियंस टैलेंट को भी हायर करना है, और जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जो एग्जिस्टिंग टैलेंट है उनको भी ग्रो करना है, ग्रूम करना है. सो इट्स लाइक मेकिंग दी creating champions within the organizations who will be the next leadership. And that's amazing, great example. I'm really enjoying the session, getting great insights. And one of the last but not the least question of today: if there was one key takeaway uh, you would want leaders to remember about DRF and its impact on culture, what it would be?
Yeah. So I would say you asked me one key, but I'll take some leeway and I'll give you two. One is that don't copy paste from anyone, right? You be original. You think about who you are, right? And take a very deliberate decision, right? And there are always going to be these trade-offs. यहाँ पे आप कुछ कर रहे हो तो कुछ तो आपका जा रहा है, right? अभी आप इट्स लाइक प्लेइंग टेस्ट क्रिकेट वर्सेस T20 इंटरनेशनल्स, राइट? टेस्ट क्रिकेट खेलोगे तो आपको लंबा खेलना ही पड़ेगा. अब वो दो अलग अलग गेम है वो, राइट? दो दे आर अंडर क्रिकेट. यू कैंट प्ले T20 इन टेस्ट मैचेस एंड यू कैंट प्ले टेस्ट मैचेस इन T20. सो आप डिसाइड करो आप कौन सा गेम खेलना चाहते हो एंड वो करो, राइट? सो द सेकंड थिंग इज डोंट हैव दिस थिंक से डू गैप. जो भी आप do what you say what you do, then people don't get confused and people don't get there is this concept of cognitive dissonance, right? Like when you buy something and then you feel अरे ये this is not delivering the value that I wanted. ये मैंने washing machine खरीद लिया या phone खरीद लिया, then you feel अरे ये क्यों खरीदा मैंने, ये क्या है, right? Because the expectation that you had, because that you watched an ad which sold a lot of ideas about the product, and after you bought it, when you are using it, you're not getting that value, right? So
True.
that's called cognitive dissonance. So you don't want people to have this cognitive dissonance, and that people is not just your employees, it is also your customers, because what your employees will deliver will be to the customers, and they are also people at the end of the day, right? So they are also going to have the same feeling that, oh, these people promised a lot of things but did not deliver on it. It's like saying that, see, if we when we put the you put the announcement for the webinar, and you said it is all about alignment and company culture, and once people come in, we start talking about something else. Then people are going to very wonder what is this happening, right? So you don't want that in your employees as well as your customers. So no think say do gap. Say what you do what you say. And the first one is be yourself, right? Don't try to copy from somewhere, and it never works.
सो नकल करो बट अपनी अकल लगाओ. एंड
Yes.
एंड वॉक द टॉक. जो भी आप बोलते हो, यू शुड मीन इट. That's the key takeaway. And as per our ritual, your final words, your guru mantra, your success mantra for our audience.
Success mantra, if I would say, I'll probably repeat what I said. Do what you say what you do, walk the talk, right? And again, it's not just from an organizations and leaders standpoint, right? Because when we talk to leaders, we also talk about how they deal with people who are, say, joining as employees. It's the same thing for every individual, right? And we were talking about this example of that mother and child also, right? Don't have this think say do gap. If a mother is telling or a father is telling that no, no, you should read, बच्चे को पढ़ना है, बट आप नहीं पढ़ोगे, आप आपके फोन पे बैठ के व्हाट्सएप और इंस्टाग्राम देखोगे, तो फिर बच्चा क्यों पढ़े, राइट? सो यू से व्हाट यू डू एंड यू डू व्हाट यू से, राइट? आप जितना ये गैप निकालोगे, whether it's an employee, a candidate, a leader, a parent, a friend, a son, a daughter, brother, sister, right? Life will be so much better because
True,
people get this feeling of being fooled that आपने बोला कुछ था, कर कुछ और रहे हो. You have taken me for granted, right? You don't want people to have that feeling with you, right? You want people to say, okay, boss. There are companies which openly say that, boss, I will have 15-hour work days in this company. So if you want to go, if your context in your life allows you to do that, you will go and do it happily. Someone else may say, no, no, I have family and it's very important for me. That is priority number one. I'm not going to do this. That's perfectly fine. At least I'm telling you that, boss, here it's going to require you to put in 15 hours. But the challenge is if I tell you that, no, no, there is, I respect your work life balance. Once you come in, I say, no, you have to put in 15 hours. That's the problem, right?
true,
So
true.
avoid this think, say, do gap. As an individual, as a company, I would say as a nation, everyone will get better.
True, true. So very rightly said, and let's do it. Let's start contributing towards the betterment of the society. And thank you once again for joining us, audience. Once again, requesting you to check Harish LinkedIn and other social media accounts. I'll surely put in the YouTube and LinkedIn description. You can connect with him. You can DM him if you have any questions. He'll be happy to help you. And Harish, thank you once again for joining us. Hope to see you again on our Expert Talk show with some different industry topic as you are into this coaching industry. So, bus, thank you once again and wishing you the best.
Yeah, thanks a lot, people. I think this is excellent, great questions, and really liked how this went. Thanks again for this opportunity and the privilege.
I really enjoyed it. So, thank you once again.
Yeah,
Wish you a
thank you.
happy weekend. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, so audience, I'm sure you have got good insights from today's session. So बस ऐसे ही जुड़े रहिए हमसे. Stay tuned. Follow us. Follow our YouTube channel. Follow us on LinkedIn. You can check our experts LinkedIn profile. Connect with him for any help, any guidance. And बस ऐसे ही मिलते रहेंगे every weekend with different industry experts. Till then, stay blessed. Keep smiling. And once again, this session was powered by Post Resume. So you can check in our website shown below and you can connect with us if you're looking for any help, any guidance, any support, or best talent solutions for your organization. Then we would be happy to help you. So, with that note, wishing you a happy weekend. Milte hain next week. Thank you so much.